I had pictured this moment 1,000 times on long nights overseas. I thought I'd step off the bus, smell the air of home, and see her waiting, arms open, tears falling, maybe even angry words for all the time I had been gone. But I didn't. Imagine silence. I didn't imagine hunger. I found her behind the diner, bent low by the trash bins. My chest tightened before my mind could even make sense of what I was seeing. "Maria?" My voice cracked. She froze, half-turned, her hands trembling over a greasy paper bag. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting toward the ground. I was hungry. Nobody would help me. My boots suddenly felt like chains. I couldn't breathe. "Hungry? You were digging through trash?" Her face twisted, shame pulling her shoulders inward. I tried, I asked. They laughed. They told me to go beg somewhere else. The words stabbed at me, sharper than any bullet I had ever heard whistle past me in combat. "You begged," I whispered, my throat tight, "and no one gave you food?" Her silence was the answer. She couldn't even lift her head. Behind us, a voice cut through the air like a knife. "Some people don't belong in certain neighborhoods." I spun. It was Mr. Sanders, the neighbor. He leaned against his fence, arms crossed, lips curled in a smirk I had seen before, back when I was younger, before I left, when he muttered words I wasn't supposed to hear. My fists clenched. "I fought for this country. I bled for it, and you let my wife starve?" He shrugged lazily. "Nobody told her to beg. Nobody told her to stay. Maybe she should have gone where she belonged." I took a step forward, rage buzzing in my chest like electricity. "Where she belonged? She belongs here. This is our home." His smirk deepened. "Yours, maybe. Hers? That's different." Maria grabbed my arm, her grip weak but desperate. "Please don't. Not here." Her voice cracked on the word, "please," and my stomach twisted harder than it ever had in battle. I had stood over bodies. I had carried brothers broken and bleeding. But nothing prepared me for this. My wife's fingers clutching me, begging me not to fight while her ribs pressed against her skin from hunger. "Maria," I whispered, turning back to her. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you write?" She shook her head quickly, shame still clouding her voice. "What would you have done? Left your post? Come home dishonored? I couldn't be the reason you failed." I stared at her, words choking me. "I would have walked through fire for you. I did. And you were here, alone, starving." Her lips trembled. I tried to be strong, but strength doesn't fill your stomach. Behind me, Sanders scoffed. "A soldier whining about scraps. You think the flag makes you special? The world doesn't owe you anything." My blood boiled, but I forced myself to breathe. His words stung, but they weren't new. They were the same poison I'd heard whispered my whole life, now spat openly while my wife stood with dirt under her nails from digging through garbage. I turned fully toward him. "You think the world doesn't owe me? You're right, but it owes her decency, humanity, and you denied her that." He rolled his eyes. "Save your speeches. You people always play the victim." Something in me snapped. My voice rose, shaking. "Victim? She's my wife. She begged for food while I risked my life for men who look like you, and you let her rot." Sanders's smirk wavered, just for a second. Then he spat on the ground. Should have known better than to expect respect. "Here." Maria's grip tightened again, pulling me back. "Please," she whispered. "He's not worth it." I swallowed hard, heat flooding my chest. She was right. He wasn't worth the blood I wanted to spill. But the silence he left behind was worse than any insult. It was the silence of a town that watched my wife beg, a silence that told me she had screamed for help and nobody came. I looked at her again, her eyes wet, her hands shaking, and the weight of her suffering hit me harder than the recoil of my rifle. "I'm here now," I whispered. "I swear to you, Maria, I'll never let you beg again." Her eyes closed, a tear sliding down her cheek. I wanted to believe that before. I really did. And in that moment, with her words slicing deeper than the neighbor's hate. I realized the truth. I hadn't just come home from war. I had walked into another battlefield, one where the enemy wasn't across the ocean, but right here in the streets I once called home. The house smelled like dust and silence. No warmth, no welcome, just the hollow echo of a place that had carried her pain while I was gone. I set my duffel down, but the sound of it hitting the floor felt too loud. Maria sat at the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. I cleared my throat. You should have told me. I would have found a way. Her head lifted slowly, eyes wet but sharp. And what would you have? Done, James? Deserted? Thrown your career away? You couldn't have saved me from here. The way she said saved me cut deep. I didn't need a career more than I needed you fed. She laughed bitterly, a sound so unlike her it made my skin crawl. While you were gone fighting for freedom, I was fighting for crumbs. Her words slammed into me like a punch. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. All I could hear was the rasp in her voice, the truth carved into it. Finally, I managed. Don't blame me for this. I trusted the world to be kinder to you. I trusted people, our neighbors, to stand by you. Her eyes flashed, sharp as broken glass. Then you don't know the world you fought for. The silence that followed was heavier than any artillery fire I'd known. I sat across from her, my chest burning. I bled for this country, Maria. I lost brothers. I saw kids pulled from rubble. You thought sacrifice meant something, she interrupted, her voice trembling. But while you were gone proving your worth, I was out there being told I wasn't worth the scraps in their trash. They didn't see me as a wife. They didn't even see me as a woman. Just a problem they wanted to chase away. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms, my stomach twisted with guilt. I wanted to scream at her, at myself, at everyone who looked at her and saw less than human. I should have been here, I whispered. Her shoulders sagged. And what would that have changed? You'd have stood up to them, shouted, maybe thrown, a punch. And then what? Another uniform, another reason for them to hate us. I leaned forward, desperate. At least you wouldn't have starved. She shook her head, her voice softer but sharper still. You don't get it. It wasn't just hunger. It was the way they looked at me, like I was dirt, like I deserved it. Every no wasn't just about food. It was about me, about us, her. Words cracked me open in places I didn't want exposed. I wanted to reach for her, to hold her, but her body leaned away, the distance between us wider than any desert I had crossed. I forced the words out. I thought coming home would mean peace. I thought I'd walk in and everything broken would heal. But I'm broken, she finished for me. Her voice was calm, but her eyes screamed. And you can't fix that with medals or promises. You can't stitch me back together with your pride. Her honesty hit me harder than the neighbor's sneer had earlier. At least hate was simple. Hate I could fight, but her truth left me defenseless. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I don't know how to make this right. Maria's hands finally unclenched. She looked down at them, then back at me with tears threatening to fall. Maybe it's not about making it right. Maybe it's about finally seeing the world for what it is, not for what you wanted it to be. Her words lingered in the silence, heavy and merciless. I had returned home expecting welcome arms, but instead, I was handed a mirror I didn't want to look into, and the reflection staring back at me wasn't a hero. I pushed the door open so hard the little bell above it clanged like an alarm. The store smelled of stale bread and cheap disinfectant, but the stench of what I'd seen clung tighter to me than anything in the air. The man behind the counter looked up, his smirk already waiting. You. My voice came out rough. My wife came here. She begged you for food. He leaned on the counter, casual, like I was entertainment. She looked like a stray dog digging in the trash. My stomach twisted. You laughed while she begged? His smirk widened. Begging ain't buying. This is a business, not a charity. I stepped closer, fists shaking at my sides. You let her starve while you threw bread into the garbage. He shrugged. Better in the trash than wasted on the wrong people. My chest burned hotter. The wrong people? She's my wife. His tone sharpened. She's not my problem. You go play soldier overseas and leave her here? That's on you. Marine. The word marine dripped like poison meant to sting. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but before I could answer, the bell over the door jingled again. Everything all right here? A police officer stepped inside, his eyes already suspicious, already on me. I turned to him, my voice trembling from rage. My wife begged this man for food. He mocked her, treated her like trash. I want him held accountable. The officer's gaze flicked to the store owner, then back to me. His expression didn't change. Sir, maybe you're overreacting. Nobody forced her to eat scraps. The words hit me harder than any shove. Overreacting? She was starving. He laughed at her. The officer's jaw tightened. Calm down before this gets out of hand. I stared at him, my pulse pounding in my ears. Out of hand? The only thing out of hand is that a man sworn to protect the law is standing here protecting hate. The store owner chuckled low. See? This is why folks don't want your kind around. Always making noise, always looking for pity. I spun, back toward him. Noise? You think my wife's hunger is noise? You think her tears were some kind of performance? The officer stepped between us. That's enough. You need to leave before I have to remove you. I blinked at him, disbelief mixing with fury. Remove me? He denied a starving woman food, and I'm the problem? The officer's voice was ice. You're escalating the situation. Walk away. For a moment, the world tilted. My training screamed at me to obey orders, to stand down, but another part of me, deeper, rawer, wanted to roar until the walls shook. I looked at the store owner. You mocked my wife's pain. One day, you'll choke on your own cruelty. His smirk never faltered. Funny thing about cruelty, it only matters if people care. And they don't. The officer's hand hovered near his holster, not resting, not threatening, just reminding. You've said enough. Out. My throat tightened, rage and helplessness battling for air. I wanted to tear the smirk from that man's face. I wanted to scream the truth until the officer had no choice but to hear it. But instead, I swallowed, the taste of bile bitter on my tongue. I turned toward the door, my voice low but steady. You'll remember this. Both of you. You'll remember that you turned your back on a hungry woman because you thought she didn't matter. The officer muttered, Move along. I stepped outside, the cold air cutting against my skin. My chest heaved, my fists ached from clenching so hard. Inside, the man laughed again, the sound muffled but clear enough to pierce through me. I walked, down the sidewalk, each step heavier than my boots overseas had ever felt. Out there, I had enemies with names, with flags, with clear motives. Here the enemy wore badges, aprons, and smiles, and they were harder to fight because they pretended they weren't enemies at all. The knock at the door was soft, almost apologetic. Maria hesitated before opening it, and when she did, Pastor Raymond stepped in with his usual calm smile. He looked at me like he always had, like I was a boy he once taught to pray, not a man who had faced fire overseas. Son, he said gently, I heard what happened. I came to offer counsel. I nodded stiffly, though my chest tightened. I wanted counsel, but I already feared the kind he was here to give. Maria barely met his eyes as she sat on the couch, her hands folded like she was in a pew. The pastor cleared his throat. Trials test us. Hardship humbles us. Sometimes the only path forward is to turn the other cheek. God rewards patience. My fists clenched before I could stop them. My wife starved while men preached patience. His expression didn't change. Anger won't heal you. Resentment won't feed you. Faith will. I felt my jaw tighten. Faith didn't put bread in her mouth. Faith didn't stop them from laughing while she begged. Maria's shoulders trembled. I saw the tears forming before she spoke. I don't need patience. I needed food. The pastor leaned forward. Daughter, the Lord sees your pain. He counts every tear. He will lift you up in His time. Her voice cracked as she shouted, Stop speaking for me. I don't want sermons, I want justice. The sound of her cry filled the room, louder than any hymn. I froze, my chest splitting open. Pastor Raymond sat back, his calm unbroken. Justice belongs to God, not man. You risk your soul if you chase it through rage. I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. Then tell me, was it God who told that store owner to mock her? Was it God who told the police officer to side with him, or was that just men excusing their own hate? For the first time, his eyes flickered, but his tone stayed steady. The Lord allows suffering so that we may learn endurance. Maria covered her face with her hands. Endurance doesn't fill a stomach. Endurance doesn't erase humiliation. I felt something twist inside me. I had endured deserts, bullets, and fear. But this quiet kind of dismissal from someone who claimed to be a shepherd was worse than enemy fire. I turned to the pastor. If you came here to tell me to bow my head and take it, you came to the wrong house. His lips pressed together. I came to remind you not to lose yourself to bitterness. Hatred devours the one who carries it. I stood, my voice rising. And silence devours the one who suffers it. You want us to accept hunger as holy? To call humiliation a lesson? No, not anymore. Maria dropped her hands, tears streaking her face. Her voice was softer now, but sharper still. Pastor, I prayed until my throat ached, and all I got was doors slammed in my face. If God answered, I never heard Him. His eyes softened, but he didn't argue. He just folded his hands and whispered, I'll continue to pray for you both. I swallowed hard. Pray if you want. But don't ask me to be patient while my wife is treated like she's less than human. Patience is what they demand, so they never have to change. He rose slowly, adjusting his jacket, still calm, still composed. I hope your heart softens before anger consumes it. I watched him walk out, the door clicking shut behind him. The silence he left behind felt heavier than his words. Maria leaned against me, her voice breaking. Why does everyone want me to endure? Why is it so hard for someone to just say it was wrong? I wrapped my arms around her, my own throat, tight. Because admitting it was wrong means they'd have to see us as equals, and that terrifies them. She sobbed against me and I held her, my own eyes burning. The pastor's words echoed in my head, but I shoved them aside. Patience hadn't saved her, endurance hadn't fed her, and faith hadn't protected her from shame. If justice belonged only to God, then I would force. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and old paper, but to me, it smelled like judgment. Maria sat beside me, clutching my arm, her silence louder than any scream. Our lawyer barely looked at us. The store's attorney smirked like the outcome was already carved into stone. He rose, his voice sharp and theatrical. Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of discrimination. What we have is a man, he pointed straight at me, trying to weaponize his uniform for sympathy. I gritted my teeth. My stomach tightened. He kept going. He wants the court to believe his wife was denied food because of race, not because of her own behavior. He hides behind the flag and expects you to salute his story. I wanted to shout, but the judge's gavel cracked. Silence, Mr. Williams. This is a courtroom, not your battlefield. The word battlefield hit me, like a fist. My throat burned. I stood anyway. Your Honor, Sit down, the judge snapped. His eyes were cold, dismissive. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. I lowered myself slowly, but the fire inside me didn't dim. The lawyer smirked, pacing like he owned the floor. Your Honor, I don't question the man's service, but serving overseas doesn't excuse him from accountability at home. Wearing camouflage doesn't make every disagreement racism. I clenched my fists under the table. My knuckles ached, Maria whispered, her voice trembling. Don't let him erase what happened. Her words gave me strength. I forced myself to speak carefully, my voice tight but steady. Your Honor, my wife begged for food. She was mocked, humiliated, turned away. Not once, but again and again. And every time, it was the same word used to cut her down. The judge raised a hand, his tone sharp. Mr. Williams, this is not a place for emotional speeches. Stick to facts. I stared at him, my chest heavy. Are her tears not facts? Is her hunger not a fact? Or do facts only count when they're convenient? The courtroom went silent. The lawyer sneered. You expect sympathy because you wore a uniform? That's what this is about. You think this country owes you special treatment. My voice cracked. I thought this country owed me the truth. I thought freedom meant dignity. The judge pounded his gavel again. Control yourself. You are not on the front lines. You are in my courtroom. And in here, you will respect order. Order. That word made my stomach twist. Order was what had kept Maria starving while men laughed. Order was what silenced me. Now! Maria's quiet sob broke the silence. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold in the sound. I reached for her hand under the table, gripping it tight. I whispered so only she could hear. I didn't fight for freedom. I fought for a lie. Her tears spilled faster, soaking her hands. The lawyer smiled faintly, sensing victory. Your Honor, I rest my case. This is not about discrimination. It's about resentment. This man cannot separate his bitterness from the law. The judge leaned back, expression blank. We'll recess before I give my ruling. Court dismissed. The gavel struck. Just like that, it was over. For now. I didn't stand right away. My body felt heavy, my heart heavier. Maria leaned against me, trembling, her breath uneven. Why won't they hear us? She whispered. I swallowed hard. Because hearing us means admitting the system they serve is broken. I looked at the empty bench where the judge had sat. He hadn't seen a Marine. He hadn't seen a man fighting for his wife's dignity. He'd seen noise. He'd seen defiance. As the bailiff motioned us out, I kept my eyes forward. I didn't salute the flag in the corner. I didn't bow my head. The lie was clearer than ever. I hadn't been fighting for freedom. I'd been fighting to protect a system that fed on silence. And now, I refused to starve in it. When the knock came, Maria looked at me with tired eyes. It's him, she whispered. I opened the door. There stood Marcus, my childhood friend. Same crooked smile, same easy stance, but I could already feel the weight of what he came to say. He stepped in, glancing around our small living room. Man, I'm sorry about court, really, but you gotta stop letting this eat you alive. I folded my arms. Eat me alive? Marcus, my wife was starving. That store laughed while she begged for bread, and you're telling me not to take it personal? He raised his hands like he wanted to calm me. Look, I get it was rough, but don't make everything about race. Sometimes it's just bad luck, bad timing. His words hit like a blade. My chest tightened. I leaned forward. Bad timing didn't make them spit slurs at her. Bad luck didn't make the judge silence me. My wife ate trash while you looked away. Maria touched my arm gently, her voice soft. Please don't. But Marcus cut in, his tone sharper. Bro, you think yelling will change anything? You think dragging race into everything will get you justice? It just makes people tune you out. I clenched my fists. My blood pounded in my ears. I bled for this country. I carried brothers, home in bags. And when I came back, I found the woman I love humiliated, begging for scraps. You want me to call that what? An accident? A misunderstanding? He shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting to the floor. I'm just saying, if you keep pushing like this, people are going to see you as angry, bitter, not as someone worth helping. Worth helping. Those words tore through me. I stepped closer until my voice shook against the silence. You mean I'm only worth helping if I stay quiet, if I smile through their hatred, if I let my wife's hunger become a story you can ignore. Maria's hand gripped mine tighter. Please, she whispered, don't let their hatred turn you into them. Her eyes glistened, and for a moment, I felt the ground under me crack. Rage was burning a hole inside me, but her voice was the only thing keeping me from falling. Through. Marcus sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. I came here to check on you, not fight. I don't want to see you destroy yourself. I stared at him, every memory of our childhood flashing. Two boys who once dreamed of a future that didn't exist for me now. My throat burned. Destroy myself? They already did that for me. All I'm doing is refusing to stay buried. Maria's voice broke as she turned to Marcus. You don't see him at night. You don't hear the nightmares. You don't know what this has done to him. Don't come here pretending you understand if you won't even say what this really is. Marcus shook his head, backing toward the door. You're twisting it. I'm trying to help. I stepped back, my anger boiling but hollow now. If help means silence, I don't need it. Go. For a long second, he didn't move. Then he muttered, You've changed, man, and walked out, closing the door behind him. The silence after was heavier than his presence. Maria turned to me, tears streaking her face. I don't want to lose you. Not to them, not to this anger. I sat down, burying my face in my hands. Her voice trembled as she kneeled beside me. We still have each other. That has to mean something. Don't give them the victory of watching you break. Her words cut through the storm inside me. I lifted my head slowly, staring at her fragile strength. My body trembled, but her hand on my cheek steadied me. I don't know how much more I can carry, I whispered. Then let me carry it with you, she said. In that moment, I realized my rage wasn't just mine. It was ours. And maybe survival meant more than. The folding chair creaked beneath me as I rose to speak. The town hall smelled of dust and sweat, the kind of place where voices echoed louder than they should. My hands trembled, not from fear of them, but from the weight of what I carried. I need you to hear me, I said, my voice steady. When my wife begged for bread, she wasn't turned away because the store was empty. She was denied because of who she was. That's not hunger, it's hatred. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted from the back, his voice sharp and dismissive. Get over it! My stomach twisted, but I forced myself not to flinch. I locked my eyes on the heckler. I will not get over what my wife endured, and neither should you, because if it can happen to her, it can happen. To anyone. Laughter scattered across the room like broken glass. Another man leaned forward, arms crossed. You always gotta make it about race. Maybe the clerk was just doing his job. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the fire rising inside me. If his job was to humiliate a starving woman, then yes, he did it well. But don't stand there and tell me it wasn't about race when slurs were thrown like weapons. A woman's voice cut in, softer but edged with doubt. What do you expect us to do about it? I turned toward her. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I expect you not to stay silent. Silence is what let it happen. Silence is what lets it keep happening. The room buzzed with shifting bodies, coughs, whispers. My heart pounded, but I steadied my voice. I fought overseas, bled for this country, believed the lies that sacrifice meant equality. And when I came home, my wife was treated like trash for being who she is. If you think I'll stay quiet, you're wrong. Maybe you should have stayed overseas then, someone sneered. The words sliced through me, dragging up every battlefield I thought I'd left behind. But I didn't shout. I breathed, let the pain settle deep in my chest, and answered low, firm. I already fought for this country once. I'll fight for it again, this time with truth. A hush fell over part of the room. Not everyone, but enough. I saw one man lower his head, his jaw working like he wanted to deny me but couldn't. Maria's face flashed in my mind, the way she whispered not to let hate consume me. This was what she meant. Rage was a fire that burned me first. Calm was a blade they never saw coming. Another voice rose from the front, skeptical but curious. So what? You want us to boycott every store? Call out every word we hear? Yes, I said without hesitation. Because if you ignore it, you're part of it. Justice doesn't come by accident. It comes when ordinary people refuse to look away. The heckler from before barked, "You're just playing the victim." I met his glare. No. Victims stay silent. I'm speaking because I refuse to let what happened to my wife be erased. A woman near the aisle whispered loudly, enough for others to hear. He's right. We can't just ignore it. Her words cracked something open. A few nods, hesitant but visible, spread through the crowd. Not everyone, not even half, but enough to feel the shift. I exhaled slowly, my chest heavy but steady. I don't need all of you to believe me tonight. But I need you to remember this. The next time you see it happen, the next time someone's dignity is stripped away, your silence will be the loudest voice in the room. Decide what side you want that voice to be on. The room went quiet. No cheers, no applause, just silence, thick and unsettled, and for the first time I felt it. Not victory, not peace, but power. Quiet, heavy power. The kind that didn't scream but lingered long after the words were spoken. The crowd outside the store buzzed with restless voices. I felt the tension before I saw him, the store owner, standing pale in the doorway, his eyes darting like a trapped animal. My chest tightened. This was the same man who had laughed at my wife's trembling hands. Now his own hands shook. He raised his voice, cracking like glass. Please, please, I didn't mean it like that. You're twisting it. I stepped closer, every eye following me. Twisting it? My throat burned. You spat on her when she asked for bread. You told her people like her didn't deserve to eat. That wasn't a mistake. That was cruelty. His face flushed, beads of sweat sliding down his temple. I was under pressure. Customers were watching. I panicked. Panicked? My voice stayed calm, but my fists curled tight. When you mocked her tears, was that panic too? The murmurs of the crowd swelled behind me. Someone muttered, "Tell the truth now." The store owner's lip quivered. I didn't mean to hurt her. I swear I didn't mean it like that. Please don't ruin me. My business. My family. I leaned forward, locking my gaze on him. His breath smelled of fear. You ruined yourself the day you laughed at my wife's hunger. He staggered, back, gripping the doorframe. His knees buckled as if my words carried weight he couldn't hold. A uniformed officer appeared at the edge of the crowd. My stomach turned. The same officer who once smirked while brushing off our complaint. I called out, "Officer, do you hear him now? Do you see him breaking?" The officer shifted uncomfortably, eyes sliding away. "This isn't my place. It's a community matter." I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that slipped out. Not your place? It was your place when you told us to move on, when you warned us not to stir trouble, but now when the truth rots in front of you, you hide. The officer's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. He turned slightly as though the cracks in his authority might swallow him whole if he stayed too long. The store owner dropped to his knees on the steps. His voice broke into sobs. "I'm begging you. I'll apologize publicly. I'll donate. I'll do anything. Just don't destroy me." His tears didn't move me. They tasted hollow. I remembered Maria's hollow stomach, her lips trembling, as she whispered she'd been humiliated. That memory was heavier than any man's pleading. I spoke slowly, letting every syllable land. You can't buy back the dignity you stole. You can't cry away the hatred you poured on her. The only thing you can do is live knowing that the mask you wore has fallen, and now everyone sees you. The crowd stirred. Some nodded, some whispered, some just stared at him crumpled on the steps. A woman's voice rose from behind me. "We all saw what you did. No apology can erase it." The store owner shook his head violently, palms pressed to his face. You don't understand. They'll boycott me. My kids will suffer. My chest ached at the mention of children, but I couldn't let it soften me. Then maybe they'll grow up knowing their father's cruelty has consequences. Maybe they'll choose differently. Silence stretched for a moment, heavy as iron. Then I turned back to the officer. And you walked away when justice was yours to uphold. Remember that when you put on that badge tomorrow. Remember whose side you chose. His eyes flickered, but still he said nothing. Cowardice in blue. The store owner's sobs filled the air, pathetic and raw. My voice cut through them, quiet but sharp. I don't want your money. I don't want your pity. I want a world where my wife never has to beg and be spat on again. That's all I've ever wanted. The murmurs turned into a ripple of voices, stronger, louder. That's right. Enough is enough. No more silence. I felt my chest loosen, not relief, not victory, but something heavier. The truth had finally shifted from my shoulders onto theirs. The store owner crumpled lower, forehead nearly to the ground. Please. But I had no more words for him. His collapse wasn't my burden to carry. I turned and walked into the noise of the crowd, their voices rising, no longer just mine. For the courtroom was packed, heat rising from restless bodies. My palms were damp, but not from fear. This wasn't like before. This time, the silence of the people had turned into a storm, and I felt it at my back. The judge's gavel struck, but it did little to calm the voices. He cleared his throat. Proceed. I rose slowly, every eye on me. My wife's hand brushed mine for strength. I carried her tremor in my chest as I faced the bench. Your Honor, I began, my voice low, but steady. The first time I stood here, you saw only one thing, a uniform. A man who fought wars abroad but wasn't allowed dignity at home. And my wife, you saw only her skin, not her hunger, not her humanity. A murmur rolled through the crowd. I pressed on. You never saw me as human, only as a Marine, disposable, once I'd served. You never saw her as human, only as a body you could dismiss, a color you could ignore. My wife's voice broke the silence behind me, soft but sharp. We are not your shadows. We are your equals. Her words cut deeper than mine ever could. I felt the weight of them echo inside me, carrying years of silence we'd endured. The judge shifted in his seat. His eyes flickered, searching for escape, but the crowd left him no room. I didn't come here for pity, I said, my voice rising. I came here for recognition, for the truth you tried to bury. When a man laughs at a hungry woman and the law looks away, that's not just his shame, that's yours. A woman in the gallery stood. That's right. Her voice sparked others. Soon, the room swelled with agreement. Enough. Justice now. The judge's gavel slammed again. Order! His voice cracked under the weight of the people. Order in this court! I stepped closer, refusing to sit. You can't silence them anymore. Their voices are the verdict you were too afraid to speak. Their presence is the proof that we are done bowing our heads. The judge's lips trembled. For the first time, he looked small behind that bench, his robe a thin shield. Perhaps, he said, his tone hesitant, breaking. Perhaps this court owes you more than silence. His words hung heavy. The crowd leaned forward, breathless. My wife's hand tightened around mine. I locked eyes with him. Silence is what you gave us when we begged for dignity. Silence is what nearly broke us, but silence will not be our legacy. You will say it aloud, that what was done was wrong. The judge swallowed hard. His voice barely rose above a whisper. This court recognizes the injustice. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a confession. But it was a crack in the wall that had stood for too long. And in that crack, light finally pushed through. My wife stepped beside me, her voice firm. "We don't want your charity. We want our humanity. Today you spoke it. Tomorrow we'll live it, with or without you." The gallery erupted, clapping, shouting, crying. Some raised fists, some simply wept. I felt the sound reverberate through me like thunder, a storm I had waited a lifetime to hear. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing it in. Not victory, not yet, but survival, recognition, a step towards something larger than me. When I opened them, the judge was staring at me, his gavel limp in his hand. He knew this wasn't just about a ruling, it was about a reckoning he couldn't control. I leaned forward, my final words sharp, unshakable. "Remember this day, Your Honor. Remember that justice didn't come from your lips, it came from ours." And with that, I sat down, my wife's hand still in mine, the crowd's roar lifting us higher than any verdict ever could. For the first time, I felt not just like a Marine, not just like a husband, but like a man who had finally broken through the silence. The diner sat across from us, the same cracked window, the same flickering neon sign. I remembered standing there once, fists clenched, watching my wife beg for scraps she didn't deserve to beg for. Now, I sat beside her on the curb, the night air heavy but finally breathable. She broke the silence first. "Do you remember how cold it was that day?" I nodded slowly. "Colder than any battlefield I've known." Her eyes stayed on the diner's door. I hated myself for asking. I hated them for laughing. But mostly, I hated that you weren't there to stop it. Her words hit like shrapnel. I clenched my hands against my knees. I wasn't there, but I felt it. Every night overseas, I fought a war that wasn't mine while you were bleeding in one that was. She turned to me, her voice softer now. "We're not hungry anymore." I let the words sink in. They weren't about food. They were about dignity, survival. The small piece of humanity clawed back in that courtroom. "No," I said finally, meeting her gaze. "But they're starving for humanity. And one day hunger like that eats them whole." Her lips curved into something between a smile and a scar. "You think today changed anything?" I breathed deep, watching the neon sputter. "Not everything, maybe not enough, but it cracked something, and cracks spread." She leaned her head against my shoulder. For a moment, silence carried more weight than any verdict. "I used to think," she whispered, "that we'd always be small, that no one would hear us unless we screamed, but today, they heard. They heard because you spoke," I reminded her. "Because you didn't bow, even when they wanted you crawling. I just stood there and shouted, 'You're the one who,' reminded them we're not shadows." Her hand found mine, fingers tracing the calluses war had left. "You always come back with scars," she said quietly. "This time I came back with you." My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her how many nights I'd seen her face in the dark, how her hunger haunted me more than bullets ever did. Instead, I squeezed her hand. "They'll forget," she murmured. "The judge, the crowd, the noise. They'll go home, eat dinner, sleep easy." "Let them," I said, voice low. "Because we won't forget. We'll carry it. And every time someone tries to bury us again, they'll find out we don't stay buried." The neon light flickered once more, washing her face in a glow that made her eyes shine like steel. She studied me. "You're not the same man who left in uniform." I shook my head. "No, I'm more dangerous now, because I've learned my silence was their weapon, and I won't give it to them again." For a long while we just sat, letting the night hold us. No applause, no speeches, no verdicts. Just two souls stitched together by pain, still breathing. She whispered almost to herself, "We're not hungry anymore." I repeated it, not as an echo, but as a vow. "We're not hungry anymore." The words settled between us, heavier than the gavel, louder than the crowd, And in that quiet, I knew we hadn't won.